Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cyber Inspiration Podcast. My name is Evgeniy. I have been around cybersecurity for the last 20 years and I have a lot of experience working with a variety of cybersecurity vendors. My main work is vendor consulting and cybersecurity advisory for companies. As part of my passion in technology and cyber, I've been intrigued to learn how a company starts. I started the podcast to understand the thinking process and what motivated people to start their own company. This podcast is affiliated with Security Architecture Podcast.
I have a pleasure today to talk to Amir from Vorlon. Amir, can you please tell us about yourself and the company?
Hi, Evgeny. Good to be here today. I guess before I'll talk about Vorlon, I'll introduce myself quickly. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Vorlon. Been in the cybersecurity and the startup industry for many years in different companies and startups, of course. And the problem that we are trying to help organization with today is basically third-party breaches. In general, the risk frequency from third-party apps is extremely high. We are hearing about third-party breaches impacting companies on a weekly basis. And if we're looking from a trend perspective, it grows nearly 70% year over year. And that because companies don't have a simple way to detect and respond to those threats. And that's where Vorlon comes in. We're a platform that first will discover all your third-party connections and understand what data they're consuming from you, and then continuously monitoring the data communication and access to identify your risks. Cut the time to investigate and respond when needed by more than 90%. So you don't just monitor, you're actually being proactive and stay ahead of your threats.
I usually don't ask this question, but because you and me spoke about this a long time, about 2 years ago, what is the reason for the name and the source of the name?
Yeah, so actually my co-founder Amir Khayat is a big fan of Babylon 5. And the Vorlons were the first creature in the Babylon 5 episode that basically speaks in one native language with everyone on planet. And that's what we are trying to do, to speak with all these third parties, helping to understand all the data and basically help you to be more secured when you're interacting with them.
The idea. We are podcast about inspiration. And I usually ask people, like, what happened in your life that actually triggered the idea? This is not your first startup. You participated in startups before. So you already had this emotion and idea. What does it mean? What does it take to create one? Even maybe you didn't create it yourself. What happened in your life that triggered this idea? Why you went down this path?
I think that ever since I remember myself, I wanted to start my own company. Through my career, I built my journey, learning the different elements in companies. I started as a software engineer, moved to deployment roles, and then I would say half through my career, I moved to the go-to-market sales as a sales engineer and then working with sales engineer and sales teams, trying to learn, honestly, every aspect of the organization. So when my time will come, basically, it will be easier for me. But I would say that I've been to different size of companies. Before joining Palo Alto Networks, I had an amazing run together with my co-founder and some other amazing group of people with the Misto. And that kind of started the whole idea of Vorlon. Working and hearing hundreds of customers during my time at Palo made me and my co-founder to understand that there is a gap. We were kept being asked about why we need to see this data. How can we ensure that you're not mishandling it? And that's kind of like what started the whole idea of Vorlon. And fast forward almost 2 years after, we're here.
You have an idea, you're out of Palo Alto, you can basically do whatever you want. What do? Do you raise money? Do you assemble a team? Do you go pitch your idea?
Oh, well, it's all about focus. I think at the beginning, we try to validate the idea as much as we can, trying to access different people in our network. You and I even spoke back then a couple of years ago, trying to understand what would resonate, what is the gap, what would be beneficial for companies. And then once we start to have a very solid picture, Amir Khayat puts his hands on keyboard, created a mock, and we went to fundraise. And from there, we just started to build the company, basically.
Let's touch base a bit on the fundraising, because we have so many different stories. Some people say, yes, I had an idea, I went to people and they got a lot of money. And some people say, we struggled for 2 years and nobody was going to give us money. Is there like a secret sauce? Like what happened in your case that gave you the credibility and people got your idea and decided to invest?
It's a great question, and I think every story is different, right? But I think in our case, we started with the validation calls. And again, once we had a clear picture, we started to build something and run it by our network. When we had a good conviction about, the business aspect and what value and how much they potentially will pay and where this solution will be deployed, basically, that's where we start to have more serious conversation with VCs. And yeah, the route was not easy. Clearly, it was post the bubble per se, but in general, we did have something. And I think it's a lot about the team experience and the potential of the market that you're aiming to serve.
You mentioned team. I want to focus on the team part. How did you decide to hire people? What are the qualities of what you were looking in people to make sure they're going to stay with you for a long time and you're going to have less friction with them as well?
Yeah, it's all about people, right? And I think that going back to my own story, through my career, I work with many great people, which I kept in touch with. And I think that when we started the motion, basically, and we needed more help building the product, and also later on in the go to market, I reach out to those great people, keeping in mind that there had some qualities that can help us be successful in a startup. And I'll focus for a second on the qualities. I think that in the end of the day, people that join startup needs to hustle, needs to think out of the box, and not to be terrified from the rapid changes that happens in startups. I'm not looking for the best resumes, the best Ivy League university. I think it's all about if you're motivated, what you bring to the table, and how much you're capable to handle a very dynamic environment. And I think that this is how we as an organization today also do our hiring process.
There's many different psychologists idea how we divide people. There's discs, there's of colors, so many different ways to kind of not separate people, but kind of put some kind of stamp. You're detail oriented, you're project oriented, you're a holistic thinker, whatever it is. But we can agree that we're all different in one way or another. Are you looking to have different people in your group? Do you want this variety? Do you want people to able to contradict each other, to have a different flash view on an idea because you don't want to be blindsided that you're going to the wrong direction?
100%. I think in general, in through my career, again, this is something that led me. Diversity is key for success. You don't want to have the same mindset and everyone will follow one direction. I think one of the things that helps us to be more creative and innovative is, challenge me, challenge our product, our head of product, challenge our CTO, challenge our salespeople. I think that creates a way to think out of the box. And in general, I think that people from different background comes with different experiences, perspective, and it always adds, in the end of the day, you need to take a decision. But if you have more data, it helps you to actually take a more accurate, I want to say, a decision, or at least something that you believe in, and not just, okay, that's what I thought before I went to bed.
You guys starting to create the product, you're working for some time. Now it's time to go to market and actually sell the idea. When you started to sell the idea, were you still in stealth mode? Was it not fully done? Or you would wait it until the product is done? What were the steps?
Yeah, so the first year was mainly me in the go-to-market and my co-founder reaching out to our network and even doing cold outreach, trying to, again, get as much as feedback as we can. More feedback is a blast. But when we actually went out of stealth, the product was GA ready for prime time. And when I say ready for prime time, I will emphasize the fact that, from day one, giving our experience in the selling to the enterprise, we built a product that will be enterprise ready. So it's not just we built a feature here or a model there. It started from every element that the enterprise company will want from us through this process, talking about MFA, full RBAC control, audit trails, things that can help you to actually play in the big actors field, basically. Yeah, we were ready with a GA product when we started to.
Here's an interesting question. From your vision 2 years ago and to the GA time, did it stay the same vision or it's changed?
It's a great question. The vision stayed the same, but the bits and the bytes definitely changed. I think that we had a different perspective at the beginning on how we want to deploy the product, what type of feature will play a more significant role. And through time, as you learn in life, things changes. So the overall vision is still the same. And actually, every all hands, we start with our mission and vision. And so far, it haven't changed. And I don't believe it will change also. I think that there is a big gap that will just add more and more things to the product to support our vision. But from day one, yes, clearly the technology has changed.
Let's go deeper on the validation part. When, or maybe if you can share the customer, you don't have to share the customer. There was a customer that you made a deal and the customer was so happy that you knew, oh my God, we build what we wanted to build. And there's a validation from the customer that we're solving a problem.
Yeah, I think our aha moment was when the customer came, and that was during the Snowflake bridge, and basically said, hey, without a product like Vorlon, the company could have been at a major risk. And this is something that you guys saved us 90% of the time, not just from an effort perspective, but from a risk perspective to the company. And I think that was a validation for us that we actually provided an ROI to the customer. And this is something pretty consistent that we hear around, you don't know what you don't know. And it's not that we're just giving you the visibility, we're actually highlighting with an actionable remediation plan on how to approach and attack those, potential risk. And I think that's like a feedback that we keep hearing from customers.
I'm going to go towards marketing and technology, and I call it chicken and the egg. Sometimes you talk to a customer, the customer says, "Ooh, if you had this feature, we'll definitely buy it." So what's your approach? You going and do the feature, or you say, "Mr. Customer, if you're happy to do the feature, but you have to buy the software and we'll release it in next quarter," for example?
It's case by case. I will start. I think that in the end of the day, we're building a platform here, and I don't want to create customization for every customer that comes. I think that in the end of the day, going about innovation, we can work very fast. There are some things that clearly, we're adding on the fly because that create trust. Definitely from a starter, they're just building the brand and they're creating the market. But I will say that you have to find the right balance between adding more features to the product to actually how much ROI it will provide in the end of the day, right? If it's an arbitrary use case, then most likely we will want to observe and hear more data. And that's another question. How much data do you need in order to take a call and an action? Okay, this is actually needed or not? Because clearly we're not Palo Alto. We don't have hundreds of thousands of inbound traffic coming to our website. And there you also need to understand, okay, is 10 customers, 20 customers, that's a good validation for a specific feature? Or maybe let's go with our gut feeling and let's try it.
I'm going to switch topics a bit. I'm going to talk about sales and founders. As a founder, and people that are listening to us right now, if you don't know, if you're a founder, you basically become a salesperson. If you don't want to become a salesperson, don't become a founder. But you have to become a salesperson. It doesn't matter if you're a technical person or you're executive person. So you're more technical, but you had a sales experience. How was it for you to become the first sales of the company? Was it native for you when it took a bit of time to get used to it?
I think it was pretty normal for me as I was supporting sales for many years. So definitely I've been to hundreds of conversations, from a preliminary conversation, just qualifying a deal, to actually working with customers and delivering a project. So I think it felt very natural for me. What I would say that was new to me is actually to be the salesperson, right? When you're in the SE seat, you always think, okay, what does this sales guy does that it's so impactful? There is so much work. You have to have a very, very, very focused process around your reach out. When do you spend more time? How do you do even the follow-up? So I think that's something that was new to me. But overall, I will say that felt pretty natural as I've been in those situations for many years.
We're going to go even deeper here. You already hired some salespeople, correct?
Correct, yes.
So you now need to let go of you, baby, and let someone else, a stranger person, to sell your baby. How do you do that? How do you let go? How do you trust them?
I think that, again, going to what I said before, I try to bring people to the company that I've worked with in the past. So the trust was already there. It's more about how do you onboard him in the most effective way. I look at it like a sport team, right? If we're looking at basketball, Steph Curry always know where, now it's Jimmy Butler, but it used to be Klay Thompson when he passed the ball. I think it's the same. When we're going on a call, we're pretty much synchronized. And I think that's the challenge when you onboard a person and a new person. So going back to your question, I was fortunate to start to work with people that I've already worked in the past, so the trust was there. But in general, yeah, it's something that you need to work on yourself. I was the person that ran all the validation conversations, starting with our first customers, and now other people are doing that. So I'm trying to take a step back, let them observe and help them when they're in need. I'm always there. The same goes with my team in Tel Aviv and also the rest of the team here in the US to help others to be successful.
Was it hard to let go and say, I'm not going to interject on the call. I'm going to just be on the fly on the wall or not even join the call?
Yeah, I think we are also lucky to be in the era of the different bots that are joining your Zoom session, so you can learn a lot and provide feedback. Vice versa, by the way. I think that feedback is always a blast, so I'm opening it in the company in general for us to have any interaction to learn from. But yeah, you're super accurate. I think that it's just be a fly on the wall. Let them do the motion here.
Let's talk a bit about work-life balance. Do you believe it exists? And if yes, do you achieve it or not?
Ouch. You're touching a sensitive point. I think that, yeah, I totally believe in it. I will say that at the early stage of a startup, it's a myth. But I think that the more time goes, you have to work on the balance and you have to do things that will help you to stop, refresh your mind, take a deep breath and enjoy, some other things in your life, because it's not only about the market and work, right?
Unfortunately, or just alive, sometimes we have hard days. The deal didn't close, somebody left, whatever it is, there is a bug. What do you do when you're down? What do you do when you hit the wall? How do you come back to yourself? Meditation, running, friends, family?
I think that in general, I try to focus on the ultimate goal and the reason that we're here, what we're trying to achieve. And I think that always keep you in focus and don't let downtimes or, as you said, like customer or prospect that just said this is not relevant, this is not the right time, to affect too much on me or on the team. On personal perspective, I would say that yes, sport helps me. Sport helps me to disconnect and to recharge myself. I run a lot. Every time that I can, I go to the mountain in winter, soon to be with you as well. But yeah, I think that helps. And obviously the family and close friends.
You can go back 2 years ago. Would you do anything differently? What you can recommend to Amir from 2 years ago?
It's a good question. I think that the first thing that I would say is don't underestimate how impactful it is to show ROI early when you interact with customers. Sometimes you're getting so excited, you have a product, everything happens in the product, but in the end of the day, you need to stop for a second and to think about how the other person that is going to use the product will look at your technology. Technology can do an amazing stuff and cool things. I would say that just focus on the market, the ROI from day one. That's what will help you to be successful and to achieve wins quickly.
Now we're going to go to a bit of voodoo stuff. If Amir from 2 years in the future will come back, what he will tell you to do right now? And we'll check in 2 years if it was right or not.
You have experience in marketing. I want to say that to spend more time on your messaging, but this is something that keeps changing over time. Clearly, every phase in the company will have different challenges. I'd say that identify real quick who is your ICP and focus on that. That will help you to be successful.
Amir, thank you very much. A lot of depth there. I like what you guys building. You have a good team. You have a good heart. So good luck there. And thank you for joining.
Thanks, Evgeny.